Welcome to another edition of West Virginia Mountaineers Live, part of the Voice of College Football, and of course, hosted by the Ryan and Rush Show each and every Wednesday night at 8 o'clock. And if you haven't yet, please subscribe to this channel and anything else of the Voice of College Football. And at the conclusion of this broadcast, go on over to the Ryan and Rush Show and subscribe there and check out any other videos that we have done in the past. We had our Troy Tuning on today, our friend that we do the Big 12 College Experience with, another channel to subscribe that we do as well. As a Oklahoma State football fan, did a little bit of behind enemy lines with him earlier, so check that out too. And we'll get into Oklahoma State. But of course, Ryan, we got to finish, as we start every episode, kind of finish up last week's weird week last week. Not only was it played Thursday night, not only was it played against our former head coach in Dana Holgorsen, but it was the weirdest of weird games I have ever seen, Ryan. Of course, the Hail Mary to end the game, but unfortunately shouldn't have even come down to that play. A lot of miscues, players missing balls. Not the sharpest game by West Virginia, but of course a game that we're looking to get back on track against Oklahoma State. What's up, Timothy Green? Not a game we really want to talk about much longer, Ryan, but a game that we probably should finish up because that game and that momentum and a lot from last week will go into this game and game planning. Any final notes from your side of things, Ryan?
Yeah, we're on to OK State. Just kidding.
Well, we are.
Yeah, unfortunately, was kind of a predictable flat spot, unfortunately, with the first time being favored, expected to win, all the pressure on you. Dana was playing with house money, and they kind of played like it. I mean, they executed offensively, but defensively, they did not execute at a high enough clip to win a road game. I mean, Donovan Smith didn't have an incompletion the whole second half. And then kind of some of the stuff that haunted Neil Brown during his first 4 years of Morgantown came back up, like the special teams woes and being penalized more than we had. I mean, we almost had 100 yards of penalties. We gave up 200 yards in return yardage alone. Just a really sloppy, undisciplined game, which I don't think is a reflection of the team. I think that was out of character, and I think it's going to get fixed on Saturday.
Well, I mean, I think it's something that we keep talking about, Ryan, is we are, because of this team and the way that it's built and our identity and our game plan and everything that goes into West Virginia's success and what we've seen this season, what goes into that is there's not a lot of room for error, if really any and all. I think we saw the largest room for error was when we beat Texas Tech, but they beat us 2-0 in the turnover battle, but we had the weather to help us out on our side. Like, that is the extent of what we can do. I really think the play in that game was when the ball just hit Anderson in the chest and the interception happened. Is everyone wants to talk about the Hail Mary, because I get that's what left the bad taste in our mouth. We finally got the lead back, 12 seconds left. I get it. And we're not blaming Garrett Green you got to know better than to take your helmet off. But of course, he's the one that kept us in the game. I mean, He threw. I mean, you take away that the interception play that I was just talking about, the ball hitting him in the chest. His stats are even better. I mean, we're talking maybe over 400 yards at that point. So yeah, rookie mistake there, but that's not what decided this game by any means. I mean, you still had a Hail Mary play to figure things out. You still had special teams to figure things out. It's just a lot of inconsistency across football and across all sides of the ball. And when the defense has just been playing so well, and I get it, you're going to have those games where maybe the unit you heavily rely on can't always step up and take control there. And so they have to I'm fine with that game relying on the offense. It's kind of what we expected, Ryan, but you can't let the guys running wild either. I mean, you got to have Donovan Smith have an incompletion in the second half. It's
the best defense was an incomplete pass. I mean, pass interference. That was the only time we stopped them. You're right. I mean, the defense was not sharp. But I mean, you got to get the stop when it matters too, as well. I mean, you got to bat that ball down on the Hail Mary. But you are right. I mean, it shouldn't have come to that. You can't give up a kick return when the defense actually was playing well too. Like the defense was all right the first 10 minutes of the game, and then we give them a momentum changing kick return. And let's be honest too, they could have ran back 2 more. They had one called back that they did run back, and the other one the guy got tripped up. So yeah, just it by far the sloppiest game of the year. I mean, Penn State, when we lost, it was, hey man, we lost Penn State. They're arguably the best team in the country. We'll find out on Saturday when they finally play Ohio State. But yeah, I mean, it was by far the sloppiest game of the year, unfortunately.
Yeah, and I mean, I think the glass half full way to look at it is, right. We've prided ourselves, we pride our show, and it's never as bad as it seems. It's never as good as it seems. So, kind of going glass half full here is your 2 losses are, yeah. We'll see what this Penn State team is. I think they're around 6th or 7th right now in the AP poll. I mean, we believe they could get all the way up to 4th. I kind of been saying, like, they feel like a playoff team this year. And so one of the losses being that to start the season in Happy Valley. Okay. And then you lose a game against a head coach that has circled this one and made it his personal Super Bowl in that fashion. I mean, you're still fun. Like, we're still ready we're still on track. It's just this Oklahoma State. Now there's just not room for, I mean, we see it in the game level, but we also see it now in the season level. There's just not really much room for error left. And so we got to get this one against Oklahoma State. And right now, I know, I think it's ESPN FPI, because we know how great they do.
With their power index.
Yeah, there's a reason, right, where all the casinos keep those on while you're placing sports bets, because they want you to look at that. But we'll take it for what it is. They have us favored in 4 games to this point. I think that's Oklahoma State, BYU, Baylor. That one's the road game, and then Cincinnati. And then the 2 were underdogs is at UCF and at Oklahoma. So, I mean, hey, I mean, if we've been talking about 8-9 wins this season, I mean, that's the formula right there. And you definitely need to get one that maybe you shouldn't have gotten. Maybe that's this weekend against Gundy, OK State. We'll shift the conversation there in a second. But hey, maybe it's that at UCF game. That's especially with Plumlee coming back and playing against Oklahoma coming up this week. Really curious about that game and watching him. I think that game's at noon, right, Ryan? Before we're at 3:30. Let me check here. Yes, that game's at noon. So we'll have the ability to see how well UCF is and Plumlee is before we play him next week. But I mean, the formula is still there. It's not panic time, but it goes into Oklahoma State. And I think something good and beneficial about this game, similar to that Texas Tech game, is it's supposed to be another gross day in Morgantown. And you have Oklahoma State coming off of 2 emotional wins, basically against the state of Kansas and Kansas State and Kansas in Stillwater. They have to, after this, they go back home for 2 more games against Cincinnati and then the last round of Bedlam. So if there is a game in the formula that this works out for West Virginia, this is the game, Brian.
Yeah, sandwich spot, as we like to call it on our Big 12 College Experience show, that we give out picks every single week for the whole Big 12. So go check out that show. And, of course, go check out the Ryan and Rush show, where we'll break down the entire game at length. We had an Oklahoma State guest on, our buddy Troy Tuning from the Big 12 College Experience. So everything intertwining, Cowboys, Mountaineers. It's going to be a fun game. I'm looking forward to the bad weather. I mean, it's my kind of weather, football weather. This team should play well. I think they're going to be able to run the football against Oklahoma State. And a lot of it, they're going to have to run the ball because the weather's going to be bad.
Yeah, and I think that's, like I said, making use of Texas Tech. And I think this is that game where we are waiting for it against Houston. It didn't, well, it happened against us. But we're waiting to win that turnover battle game again. And I think this has the makings for that. We need to. Because eventually this stuff has to start going around. Someone's going to need to catch the ball. Exactly, Ryan. I don't care if you're an offense, defense, special. Got to catch the ball. I know, I know
ridiculous.
I know there's the concern about Neil Brown kind of falling back into Neil Brown ways. I know there's the concern about his coaching. I think he's been great this year. Been very supportive of Neil Brown. Actually, really happy with the job he's done. And I by no means I don't think we hold that Houston game against him. Yeah, there were concerns maybe buttoning up at the end there, but he literally can't go out and catch the ball himself. Yeah. So we'll definitely defend him on that, Mark. But someone has to do something this weekend, because we cannot keep going through these games and not have the turnover battle in our favor.
Yeah, the margin of error, like you talked about, we aren't just going to line up and beat a team because we have better players. That's not the construction of this roster. Our roster is constructed nicely to fit our strengths: the offensive line, running the football, playing complementary football, which I think we can start doing now with the running game, with Garrett Green proving he can get some of these guys, these receivers involved. But on the defensive side, it's been a good unit. I know they had a bad outing at Houston. Like you said, it's going to happen. But biggest bone to pick, man, we got to catch the ball. Outside of Pitt, we haven't caught the ball at all. And we've had plenty of chances. Beanie Bishop's dropped about 7 this year.
I didn't even hear his name against Houston.
He was on the field every play.
I know. It was tough game. It's tough game. Well, I think we need to do, as Neil Brown said, like, we got to just flush that one out and move forward. We basically have, but we needed to have a few more notes to talk over it. So now moving on to this Oklahoma State, and we already kind of started this conversation as well, is I think Remack and Milam are back this game, Ryan.
Yep.
I think
huge.
Burke's back too, which I think that might be the X factor on defense. I think it showed how much Burke's really, the preseason grades he was getting. We see why he got such high honors, because of the very reason we saw against Houston.
Yeah. Neil Brown on the injuries earlier in the week. Burks is back at practice. He was limited. Remack, I think, is actually going to miss one more game. But I think Milam's back.
We need to have someone, because that's why we got some of those holding penalties.
Yeah, and we couldn't run the ball that effective too, because we were predictable and running to the right side, because our whole left side was banged up. So yeah, getting those guys back is a must. And yeah, Aubrey Burks, I think we realize how important he is to this defense. I know a lot of people were like, maybe we're better without him. I don't think so. I think we got that answer quickly.
I don't know why people would say that.
Yeah. People get caught up in the moment. A couple guys make the plays when Burks goes down. But I mean, there's a reason they're the second string. They can come in, do a job for a couple times, but overall, you want your horses out there and your veterans. So yes, much needed. Got to get those guys back. And it's going to be a physical game too on Saturday. Oklahoma State is playing well, and they're running the out of the football too. So
yeah, they are.
It's kind of mirror images of one another, where both teams want to establish a line of scrimmage, and whichever team does so is going to win the game.
And we know with Bowman too, he's really caught on fire recently. Yeah. Gundy started with this nice 3 quarterback system,
including his son.
Yeah, exactly right. And the typical, if you don't. They say if you have 2 quarterbacks, you have no quarterbacks. I don't know what it means when you have 3 quarterbacks. But then Bowman steps up and is looking great. But I definitely think with the weather is if you play and sell out on the run on defense I'm not underestimating Bowman, but I'm also making him carve me up on using the weather to our advantage and make him, all right, you've done it 2 games. Let's see how you do it on the road in Gross Morgantown under the rain. I mean, to go back, I remember being at this game. We saw Mason Rudolph do it. That was a disgusting. I think that was like a 50-39 game. That was a ridiculous game. But I don't think we're going to see that again. This Saturday. I'll lose my mind if we do it. At least if we do, it better be West Virginia 50. But I just, with the sandwich spot we're talking about, with the, like, everything plays into West Virginia's advantage. It's just the big question we have going into this game, Ryan, is have we shaken the distaste out of our mouth from that Houston game? And I think we've had extra time to rest and move on from that. So it's going to be interesting to see. We got what blanket here. Bowman is a good at Dink and Dome. Bowman is 2-0 against WVU. Yeah, he is. Yeah, he's done well against us. But I definitely think, he's been slinging the ball though, Ryan. Like
Yeah.
he looked like, wow, where did this pocket passer come from? Type. But this is a game. I hope this isn't this. Well, I think we're just going to miss him in general because of how good he is. But I really hope this isn't a Lathan game where we're like, oh man, if we had Lathan for this game, really need Cutter to step up.
On Saturday, you mentioned Bowman was 28 of 41 for 336 against K-State. Threw for 235 yards, almost 300 against Iowa State. Ever since they fully committed to him, he's really playing at a high level. Since they finally committed to him, Wet Blanket does make a good point. He is 2-0 against the Mountaineers. The last time he started, I believe, I forget what year, it's 2018. I want to say. I mean, he's been in college forever, so yeah. I'd have to go back and look. He didn't start last year. That was Morden. I actually think he's only 1-0, to be honest. So
it might have been 2020 when he was at Texas Tech, 2020, 2019, because Neil beaten Texas Tech. Yeah. So it must have been 1920.
He didn't start. He didn't start the West Virginia game though. He didn't start that game. I think he had COVID. The COVID year. I think he was out with COVID. So yeah, I'd have to deep dive. I only think he's 1-0. So, but yeah, he's been in college since about the Brandon Whedon era. So this is kind of a narrative too. We lost to Texas Tech 4 times in a row. We snapped that. Gundy's won 4 in a row here in Morgantown. It's time to snap that streak. Bowman obviously has had some success against us. Time to snap that streak. So this is another snap the streak type of game where it's easy to get up for a game like this. You just played your worst game of the year by far.
That's why we lost to Houston, right?
Yeah.
There was no streak. Yeah, we never played each other. We got to snap the streak. So we'll beat them next year.
Well, and Oklahoma State played their best game on Saturday. I think arguably they played their best football the last 2 weeks. So I think they are due for a little bit of regression, and it's a good spot for the Mountaineers on Saturday. But it's all going to start up front in the trenches.
I think between besides last year, and we know kind of how that ended, of course, I still laugh at last year sometimes. Like if you would have told me, oh, you got just to start the season, you pick 3 random opponents and they were like, you just pick them out of a hat. You're going to be Oklahoma State, and Baylor. I'm like, oh, damn, we're going to win the Big 12 last year. And of course,
or at least win 8 games.
Yeah, exactly. We're going to go 9-3. But yeah, obviously last year kind of ended the season. I know Oklahoma State still made a bowl and that they ended up losing to Wisconsin too, but that was a gross game. That was a gross game. I feel like it's always raining when we play these guys. And then before that, it was 2014. I think they went on like a 7-game win streak against us. It didn't matter if it was, I remember them upsetting, I think we were 12th in the country and with Skylar Howard. And I think they're the ones that snapped that. They've always been there. Will Greer, he runs it in, does the famous horns down play that they called it after, of course, the Texas game when he ran it in for 2. We did the same play against Oklahoma State and they came down and this is definitely the
thorn in
we
the
need
side.
This one. Yeah.
Yeah. No, this is Texas Tech all over again.
This is the new Tech. I like that. Even though we won last year, I kind of like that. This is like the new Texas Tech is we have these games where speaking of it, and we'll get to the others around the Big 12 here in a little bit that we usually do, but we kind of saw it last week with BYU and TCU. There's always that one team that just always bothers you. And obviously BYU and TCU have that history going back to the Mountain West. So it's the same thing there. Oklahoma State, Gundy, he gets up for the games he needs to get up for. So
yeah,
always great coach, always done a good job.
Yeah, no, it's everybody counted him out, and there he is, 2-1, 2-1 in Big 12 play. Controls his destiny to get to Dallas. The winner of this game, too, and we'll dive into the Big 12 scenarios, is going to have an inside track. Really going to control their destiny going down the stretch of trying to get to Dallas. Oklahoma and Texas, they were on bye weeks. They're back this week. So, yeah, this is going to be a physical game with both teams at a high urgency. They both need this game really, really bad. So it's looking forward to this game on Saturday, Rush.
So kind of going over the standings because I want to kind of project out because we're very favorable. We really like where West Virginia stands scheduling wise. Obviously, we got a tough one against Oklahoma. So right now, we have obviously Oklahoma leading, no Big 12 losses. There's a couple teams that still need to do their buys. I think it's Iowa and Kansas this week, and then I think it's TCU and Kansas State next week, and then we're done with the buys for the last month of the season. I think that's right. And then and then you look at the one-loss teams: Oklahoma State, Texas, Kansas State, West Virginia, and then the two-loss teams: Kansas, TCU, Texas Tech, BYU, Houston, Baylor, and then of course the 0-3 teams are the three-loss teams in UCF and Cincinnati. And we all know the deal with UCF. That isn't a true reflection of. Actually, you could kind of make a case for both 0-3 teams. There is one the quarterbacks messed up, both of them, is in terms of Plumlee being hurt for UCF. And then Cincinnati still being an incredible team. And then Emory Jones loves to throw his red zone picks or fumble the ball there too. So the quarterback causing a little trouble for both those teams, but definitely teams not to take lightly, even though they haven't gotten their Big 12 wins yet. Well, like even their first Big 12 wins. But Ryan, kind of going into the schedule is let's look at the teams that are, around us or above us. Iowa State, 3-1 right now. Don't play them. Kansas State, don't play them. Kansas, 2 losses, but I mean they're good at any time. And I mean we have our concerns with Jalen Daniels if there's something issues going on there. But they're right behind us, so we don't have to worry about playing them. And then of course Texas. We're not playing Texas either. And the two teams, kind of behind us a little bit in the rear views, TCU and Texas Tech, that we'll have the tiebreaker against. So we're in a great position here, Ryan. And then after this game at UCF, BYU, Oklahoma's the big one, Cincinnati, Baylor. Like we talked about to start this episode, we're projected. We don't put a lot of faith in these ESPN FPI projections by any means, but I mean, that's 4-2 is, I actually kind of agree with that. Is that sounds right?
Yeah, and I'm doing the math in my head right now. The teams that they missed, the 4 teams are combined 10-5. I mean, in Big 12 play, they're 4 easily top half of the league teams. So, and you look at the bottom feeders: BYU, Houston, Baylor, UCF, Cincinnati. I know Houston's only wins against us, but I think you put an asterisk next to that too. That was the Dana Holgorsen Super Bowl spot.
If another coach is coaching Houston, we'd be like, that's the exception, not the rule. If you had
correct,
if you had someone else,
I mean, you couldn't have and Oklahoma State's got the same deal. That's why this game is so pivotal on Saturday, where each team's gonna have a nice path to Dallas, and we'll talk about Oklahoma and Texas here in a minute. They are going to lose a couple games down the stretch. They're not going to go undefeated. They're not that good. I mean, they're good football teams, but they're not elite football teams. UCF is going to give Oklahoma a game this weekend. Plumlee off the bye. UCF finally got healthy. Oklahoma's coming off the Red River rivalry. That is going to be a good football game on Saturday. And I know Oklahoma fans are already chalking it up as a W. You don't do that in college football. So I'm really looking forward to that one. Like you said, right before we kick off at 3:30.
So UCF at Oklahoma, like you said. Another thing I want to bring up, actually, it'd be great if UCF can figure that one out, especially with Plumlee, especially if Oklahoma's underrating them a bit. Because I want to share something too here, Ryan. We get to week 10. This is when we play BYU. November 4th, and then Oklahoma's at Oklahoma State. So, and then we have Oklahoma after Bedlam.
Yep.
That could be a letdown spot. Like even when we play Oklahoma, it could be a letdown spot. Even when we play the concerns of the UCF, that could be a letdown game for them. This schedule is, I really see this game this Saturday is if you can get this domino to fall, I think we're going to have another, just slew of dominoes just fall down. It's kind of like you lose to Penn State, and then you win 4 in a row, and then you lose to Houston, and then you win 4 or 5 in a row again. Like that could very well happen. Sometimes, obviously, we don't want to lose. We don't want to lose to our former coach, and we don't want to lose the way that we did lose. But Ryan, you worked for Hugs. You worked in college basketball. You saw it where sometimes before March Madness or before that conference basketball tournament is you kind of get that last season unexpected loss that's like, oh, we don't want to feel this again. Like, this is the thing to get us going. And
Yeah.
that's what this could be, especially when it's like, it even shouldn't be a loss. Like, so even when you played at just so bad, and you were up 4 with 12 seconds left in the game, and with how bad you played. So
yeah, and it kind of like, to go back to the Will Greer year, I know it ended kind of disappointing the last 2 games, but they were 9-1, and the one loss was in Ames on a Saturday night game where they just didn't play well. They lost the turnover battle, had a field goal blocked. Weird things happened, just like they did at the Houston game. I mean, West Virginia fans remember the famous 07 team. Obviously, that ended poorly too with the Pitt game, but they lost that South Florida game about this point, at game 5 or 6. And it was a wake-up call, and they ran the table after that. So that very well could happen. This team still went on the road to TCU, got a win. TCU's not a fraud. We've seen that over and over again. They beat Texas Tech. They grinded it out against Pitt. And, I mean, this team had been playing as good as anybody. The bye week probably did not come at the right time in terms of being hot. It didn't help our injury report because all those guys ended up being out again. But, yeah, man, I expect this team to play well down the stretch. They're veterans.
What do you think the expectations are for this team? And I don't mean that. So add a little bit of your fan bias in it, and add a little bit about like what you know about this team and what's left. Where it's, we started this season and we're like, hey, if we can just get to 8-4, if we can just get to 9-3. And now with the conversation, the way things have lined up shifted to, hey, maybe we can get to Dallas. What is your, I don't even want to do floor to ceiling, but what's your good kind of line in between that? What
8-4.
8-4. Do you think 9-3?
Definitely think
hard.
9-3.
One more loss.
I mean, it's going to be hard, but I think that group thinks that they have a good enough team to get to Dallas. I really think that that's their expectation, especially with the schedule. I know they just gave one away on the schedule that we keep talking about, but that you're probably not going to get. I'll take my chances that we don't give 2 away on that schedule. We were always going to give 1 away. I mean, especially with the way that we were winning, grinding it out in a crazy game against TCU, grinding out a crazy game against Texas Tech and Pitt. So, I mean, we were bound to give 1 back. I don't think we're going to give another one back against a mediocre team is the right term.
Yeah, I think that's fair. And I think 2 losses in the Big 12. Watch this. No, it definitely gives you a chance. I'll tell you the West Virginia, just typical West Virginia result. We're gonna have 2 losses in the Big 12 and be tied with 3 other teams and lose the tiebreaker or something, or we'll go head to
Oklahoma,
or we'll go head to head against like a Kansas State or something, and they'll watch. But anyway, I mean, that's a great season though, and there's nothing you can do about it at that point, because here's the reverse side of this too. Is I can see what the narrative's going to be if that happens. The narrative's going to be, hey, we ended up tying for second place. We lost the tiebreaker, and now we can't go to Dallas. We should have won that Houston game. And okay, I get that. I get that narrative. But here's the problem to that, because here's my prediction, what I think is going to happen. And I think this is either going to happen in one of these 3 games. It's going to happen against, I guess it could technically happen to anyone, but my prediction is going to happen this weekend. It's going to happen the following weekend, or it's going to happen at Oklahoma. You're going to win one of those games, and you should not have won. So it's going to even out. Like,
you could argue TCU they should have lost.
Yeah, you could, but no. I think TCU's you could have lost. I think the same thing with Texas. Well, Texas Tech, we dominated that game. We definitely, that was the right result of that game. I ignore the turnover battle, but I think TCU's a could have lost. I don't think it was a should have lost, because even though TCU got up and stuff, I mean, we shut them out in the second half. Like we had that game. Like, and we've always done well in Fort Worth. I'm talking about like, we had no business winning that game. That's what I'm saying. I think we're going to be due for one of those. And that's how
the
this
Houston game. In a way, it almost was a Houston game, because they were down 11 with 4 minutes in it. I mean, odds,
but it shouldn't have even got to that. I mean, we can go around in that.
But I agree with you though. They are gonna win. They're gonna win. They're They're going to win a mess up game. I think it's going to be Oklahoma. That's the one I think it's going to be. I think that's the one they're going to pull out of you know what and find a way to win in Norman this year.
Yeah, I mean, possible. We saw Garrett Green 2 years ago do some. I mean, they never were trailing the whole game till the very end. And I mean, if it was, I think that was actually Zach Frazier that snapped it over his head. It was the mix up.
False start.
Yeah, and sort of that. Chad Atkins, why do West Virginia fans have to watch 5 years of the same thing? Excuses for losses in games that we should have won. I mean, it's football.
I don't know. I don't know if it's excuses. It's just reality that it's a competitive game, and you got two teams that are. I kept saying all week the talent discrepancy was not what everybody was making it out to be. Houston's got some players, and they got a good quarterback, and they had a good football coach. Their football coach is the second all-time winningest coach in our program history. So, I mean, you knew Dana was going to have those guys ready. It's just they didn't get enough stops down the stretch. And, yeah, they probably should have won. But if you get outplayed in 2 out of 3 phases, it's hard to win on the road.
I think you can call out bad play, too. And, yeah, maybe we can use the shoulda, coulda stuff. And I get the no excuses. You win at the end of the day. But I don't think we're making excuses either. I mean, the ball hits you right in the chest when you're standing in the end zone, and it goes to the defender for an interception. Catch it's just we're not even blaming the refs, and we could go down that road from that game, but just it is what it is. I think it's more of a things even out. So Mike King, their secondary is over 6 feet tall, about 62. I'm guessing that's 6'2" on the average, and they can all run. Yeah, they can. But we can run too, and we can get physical with our lines. I mean, we saw that. I mean, Texas Tech, they had bodies. They had big guys too. And sometimes we see that in the secondary where the bigger bodies aren't necessarily an advantage, because sometimes you get to that far in the field and it's low man wins if you can't get low enough or time it up right. So,
and Mike King, good question here. Zach Frazier against their nose guard, Justin Kirkland, I believe is his last name. He's good. But I mean, Frazier moved the guys at Penn State. Those guys are first and second round picks. I expect Zach Frazier to win his matchup. He's won every matchup so far this year. I continue to think he will win every matchup. I mean, TCU, he was kicking TCU's ass so bad that they started holding him from blocking them.
Yeah, I mean, they've already said Zach Frazier's ready for the NFL.
No doubt.
Yeah, he's
a beast.
To go. Chad Atkins asked again on the last play of the game, why do we not have the 4 best pass rushers in the game? Even Brown said they should have 4 to 5 man pressure. We're asking the same. We're asking a lot of things about that last play, Chad. That's where we put a little blame on Neil Brown. I mean, and there was a blatant hold. I'm not blaming the refs. Like I said, we've said this should have come down to the last play in any sense of it, but there was a blatant hold there too.
The other thing, they couldn't sub because Houston went hurry up in between the last 2 plays. So they weren't able to sub because Houston did not sub, but they should have had the right personnel from the first play because it was 2 plays. It was out of bounds and then right to the ball for the Hail Mary. They didn't give West Virginia a chance to sub.
I'm trying to remember when Dana called a timeout. When did he use his last timeout?
It wasn't for the Hail Mary. It was I forget when he called it. It was on the defensive side. It was on the defensive side. It might have been. Yeah.
Oh, maybe was it that 4th and 10?
Yes, I believe. Yeah, it was. Yeah, to set their defense, and I mean, it came quick. The Hail Mary. It was like they crappy kickoff. They got good field position again, and then they got a quick hit out of bounds right to the ball. Hail Mary. They win.
What do you think the solution is for? I don't think our kicker can get to the back of the end zone, and I'm telling you what, I'm tired of watching these guys try to. I would rather okay, they start at the 25. Okay. It's getting to that point. Do we
get out of bounds?
Start at the 35?
Yeah.
I guess
should have done that on the last possession.
Yeah, but you got to get past it. Yeah. Yeah, it's a tough one, man. It's special teams, dude. It's
Yeah.
keeps you up at night. At least keeps me up at night. I was up all night that following night. But
Yeah.
all right, Ryan, let's do a little around the Big 12, catch everyone up, and then we will call it a night. What is your coming up this weekend, Ryan? Some big important matchups. What besides obviously West Virginia, Oklahoma State that'll tell us a lot? What's another matchup where I'm not saying it's definitely necessarily the best matchup, the best team, but what is the matchup other than us that's like going to tell you a lot in terms of Dallas?
TCU, K-State. The
Oh,
two
the
teams that
rematch,
were
yeah.
the two teams that were in Dallas. K-State's got one loss, big win. Avery Johnson took over, lightning in a bottle, 5 rushing touchdowns. That's not a typo. 5 rushing touchdowns for a quarterback. That was an impressive debut, and he didn't start. So this is his first career start. Hoover on the other side lit up BYU, 4 passing touchdowns. Let's see how he does in his first career road spot in the Little Apple. So 2 young quarterbacks taking over good programs in a rematch of what was a classic last year in Dallas, and this one is the 7:00 ESPN primetime slot. So really looking forward to that matchup.
Yeah, I think Texas Tech BYU is going to be fascinating. I definitely agree with you.
Yeah.
That's ahead. That's probably of the looking at the Big 12 as a whole, pardon me, the one that's the Kansas State TCU is going to tell us the most in terms of, because the winner of that team, right? We're going to all be like, "Oh, a couple of weeks ago those guys were dead." And it's like we're going to get to the end of the season like, "Oh, crap, they're still here." Like that's what that game is, but I'm curious in terms of I guess the 2-loss matchup, the Texas Tech BYU is, I think this is going to be the game, the quitters game. Is after this game, the other team's probably going to be like, we're done. And I could see that leaning more Texas Tech. I think Texas Tech's a better team than BYU. Well, especially with BYU and all their injuries. BYU is not a bad team. That's another. They just kind of got the short end of the stick, and they don't really have a running game. But everything else is, I mean, Slovis is, as much as I hate to say it because of obviously the team he played on last year. I mean, that Kansas game, he looked incredible. Obviously, TCU, he didn't look good. And like I told people, is that TCU BYU game, just throw it out in terms of BYU. Don't hold that against them. I've seen that a million times when they were in the Mountain West. It's just one of those, you throw it out. You take TC, Timothy, you'll take TCU in the Kansas State one. Yeah, that's interesting. Because what do you think, Ryan, do you think Avery John, like if you're able to stop him from running, do you think he can throw the ball?
No, that's what I texted you last weekend. I said, man, I don't know why they're benching Will Howard. This guy can't throw. He can't read a defense. Boy, I didn't realize he had that kind of speed and agility. I mean, he ran all over Texas Tech, but also that game kind of got away from Texas Tech where turnovers led to short fields, and they kind of quit. They had some quit in them last week. Definitely the offseason front runners is what Texas Tech has turned into.
And we said that, like we've mentioned it, that if you're, hey, I mean, Texas is an example of this, right? Is we keep, when we hear all off season, like, oh, watch out for this team. And this team hasn't really proven anything. I guess Texas Tech, they went 8-4 last year. I mean, they did decent, but it's not like they were TCU or can't like actually in the Big 12 championship. Like you need to show a little bit of a track record. And this is, I guess, a message for the national media before you start being like, oh, Texas Tech, it's their year. And it's like, no, show me something first. And coming out, losing to Wyoming. I mean, hey, I kind of fell for it with Baylor a little bit. Well, I guess Baylor wasn't talked about a lot this offseason, but I mean, I thought Aranda was going to get things moving a little more than he has. He might be in trouble, by the way. I know that's a tangent on, but going back to what I was saying in terms of the Texas Tech BYU game is just curious how both those teams are going to come out in that game, especially being at BYU. Texas Tech's had experience, as we brought up, with Wyoming, them starting the season against Wyoming and playing in the mountains with elevation and stuff. I don't know if that helps them or they're like, oh, crap, we got to go back and deflates them. I think it's the reverse TCU Kansas State game. It's the who still has the fire in them game.
Yeah. No, I mean, I'm looking forward to that one, especially in Provo. Kind of lean to the Cougs as well. I'm going to tell everybody right now, and everybody's going to call me crazy. UCF is going into Norman, and that is going to be a good football game. That is not going to be a blowout. I know the number's 19. Jeff Lebby, former UCF offensive coordinator. Dylan Gabriel, former UCF quarterback. A lot of familiarity on the two staffs. UCF gets John Rice Plumlee back. Oklahoma can be had on the ground. UCF was rolling on the ground before Plumlee went down. Off the bye, they're as healthy as they've been. That's going to be a one-possession game in the fourth quarter. That's my prediction. And I think UCF has a chance to go in and shock the world. I really do.
From West Virginia's side, that's what we want.
And it's a letdown coming off the bye week. They're still talking about the Texas win.
Yeah, they are. I mean, in the schedule, I mean, here, let's spend a little time on the SEC front runners. Oklahoma, okay, so they're out of the bye. We say they play UCF. They're at Kansas, at Bedlam. West Virginia comes to town, at BYU. Oklahoma's going to lose that game. I'll tell you right now. They're going to lose at BYU. And then versus TCU. And like, what do we say about TCU? The Oklahoma may come to that game against TCU and be like, oh crap, they're still here.
Oklahoma finishes 9-3.
I like that.
Yeah.
Let's take a little peek on everyone's favorite Horns Down, Texas, especially you, Ryan. So coming off the bye at Houston this week. Yeah, they're going to win that one versus BYU.
Hey, who's got a winning record against the Texas Longhorns?
They do, but Dana already had his Super Bowl. It's hard to. I agree. I know what you're saying. I think he spent everything he had on what we saw.
Well, this one's actual university. This one's a university Super Bowl.
Yeah,
because Texas kept them out of the Big 12 for all these years.
I agree.
Yeah.
I agree. I just think if West Virginia didn't play them the week before, then maybe. I guess they do get Texas coming off the bye too, so they have more extended rest. But I'll tell you the one after that, BYU. I don't mean to keep bringing up BYU, but this is kind of what BYU does. They lose the games they probably shouldn't lose, or those close ones, but then they come out and who you want to talk about the revenge angle? Who's BYU's former quarterback? Steve Sarkisian.
Yep.
So there's something to that. Versus Kansas State, at TCU, at Iowa State, Texas Tech.
3 losses.
Easily.
Maybe 3 more.
Well, that's what I'm saying is I think we're talking about 4 losses total. At least 2 more. 3 right there.
And
where'd those balloons come from?
I don't know where those balloons
I think a ghost is excited that Texas is going to lose. So
much. That?
Everyone's celebrating
I think people don't realize how long the college football season is. They don't it's a marathon, man. Like these teams wear down, injuries. And Texas and Oklahoma, the pressure of playing in the Big 12 one last time, getting everybody's best shot. They've done a good job. It's only been 3 games in the Big 12. They got 6 more rounds of this fight. I think they're both going to stumble multiple times.
How did those balloons go off? I
don't know where that came from.
They were there was a celebration. There must be a when Texas lose 4 more times. That was the take. The StreamYard or whoever's behind all this agrees with us. Something or someone or something. Good old AI agrees with us. I mean,
they're saying get out of here.
Yeah, get out of here. But hey, we're about in terms of the Big 12 schedule. We're about halfway done, Ryan. This next week around that halfway point, and we still got the latter half of the season, especially the last month. It's not only do we have Bedlam, but it's going to be the definition of Bedlam in the Big 12, and it's another rivalry that's terrible that's leaving this conference, but gives Gundy all the motivation to win that one. Well, not this weekend, but we're definitely cheering for him that weekend, Ryan.
No doubt. So, what do we got? Now, tomorrow we got everybody over at the Ryan and Rush show. Come join us for our keys to victory and game prediction. So 5:15 over at the Ryan and Rush show. Get in there, get in the chat. We'll answer some questions as well. So yeah, exciting one tomorrow. The weekend's here, man.
The weekend is here, and life is good. We love you all. Have a great Wednesday night. Hump Day is officially almost over, and we're cruising right into this weekend and picking up a nice West Virginia win in Morgantown. Let's go, Mountaineers.
Go Mountaineers. See you guys tomorrow.